Hey there, everybody. For this assignment, we are looking at Food Truck 2.0. What happened in Food Truck 1.0 because of essentially the limitations of where you were with the content to date. Everything that you did was what is known as concrete sequential, top to bottom, left to right, no deviations inside of that. That order process presumed that there was only one way to order the food, right? You had to get an entree, you had to get a drink, you had to get a side. Now, quarantine life aside, that's not necessarily how you would choose to, number one, order food, and number two, that's not necessarily how a food truck would choose to limit you, because their hope is that you're not just getting one entree or one side, right? They want to be able to sell you more. So in Food Truck 2.0, what we're going to do is more realistically recreate the actual menu item ordering experience. Now, here we finally have a more adaptable, flexible variable type, and that is the array. Think again about an array and remember that it is a collection of homogenized, so the same sort of data. So think to yourself, how many arrays am I going to need? Can I do this with one array? And my suggestion to you is no. Yes, you could probably do it with one array, but that's going to really limit you as to what you can do with the data therein. If you are looking at verbal clue coming up, if you are looking at entrees, side orders, and drinks, how many reasonable arrays would you have there to use? Hard to say. But what you're going to use is the array in order to hold the orders so that the user can complete whatever their transaction here is going to be. Now, in Food Truck 1.0, there was exclusively one entree, one side, one drink. In Food Truck 2.0, you can get as many as 10 entrees, as many as 10 side items, and as many as 10 drink items. So think about that and how that is going to help lead you to a good looping structure. Now, one thing to keep in consideration here is the user is not necessarily going to have an equal amount of drinks to side dishes, etc. What you're going to have to use is some sort of a mechanism in order to allow a user to enter what kind of selection they're going to make and make a selection. So just think about what you need to do to structure the logic in such a way that it's, number one, repeatable, so those are the looping pieces, and two, in the selection aspect of things, how are you going to provide flexibility to the user so that they can enter the kind of, well, food or drink item that they are looking to do. So for this, as far as points breakdown goes, you'll notice that it is a large project. Actually, one of the things you'll notice here as we head off into the final 4 weeks of class is that all of these projects take a larger points total. All of these projects are going to take a larger kind of start to finish product journey, essentially. And the reason behind that is you have already covered so much ground. So we are building from concrete sequential to loops to selection to arrays to what's coming up next will be modular design. So all of these things are like a snowball. Things get bigger, bigger, bigger here. So the points value here are bigger, bigger, bigger than you've seen before. So in the way of good user design, you have 20 points here. You, as the developer, need to help ensure that the user is going to have a good interaction. And the way you do that is with good user prompting. Let them know what stage they are in as far as what they are ordering, how to order, what they need to do to correctly enter their order, what they are expecting in the way of output for their order. All of those phases of the transaction, the user and system transaction, are up to you as the developer. And you've got to use the language that you have, so those would be displays, right, in order to get that done properly. So 20 points there. In the way of selection is 25 points. What are you going to do to help the user make and it's literally a selection here for entree, side order, or drink. Now, one clue that I have for you in here that I'm going to mention now verbally, but I won't walk you through necessarily, is everybody skips on one of the three selection mechanisms we have. And honestly, it's the easiest one here. So when you're going to develop your solution here, think to yourself, how would I do this? And then pause, and then think to yourself, what's a different way to do this? The least used selection type here is far and away the easiest one to use. So selection comprises 25 points out of the total here for the 90. Repetition, remember, you are going to allow, in this case, you are going to allow your user to select up to 10 entrees, up to 10 side items, and up to 10 drink items. So we've got to be able to build a looping structure that allows for these things to happen. I won't tell you how that works, but you've got 3 different looping structures that will help you do that. Math. The first time around, it became clear to me when looking at some of your solutions that the math aspect here was not being, influenced enough by the points total. So here we actually have 20 points for math. You need to maintain the math for your users. There's no way you would go to, like one day we'll be able to go to them again, a farmer's market or a food truck or any of those things, and you would plop 3 items down on the counter, and the vendor would just hold their hand out and go like, cash goes here. That's not how that works, right? How much money am I supposed to put there? I don't know how. You've got to do the math. You have to say, okay, here's how many items, here's what the subtotal is. If there's taxes, here's what the taxes is, and here's what your grand total is. And that is what you'll recreate here. So you will let the user know how many entrees, how many drinks, and how many sides they ordered. You will let them know the costs for those. You will show them the subtotal. You will show them the taxes, and you will show them the total. As far as taxes is concerned, whatever you put in there for the taxes, use your local tax rate for that. That's fine by me. Don't go crazy. So you cannot have a good menu item ticketing system without having good math. As a matter of fact, most of these interactions we have at some point have as a core component there, a math component. And some of you have shrunk away from the math component because math is hard. That's what you've been told. This is simple math, but simple math here is a positive thing for the user. They will use that math to let them know that this interaction has successfully been undertaken. Because if you're telling them, it's $1,000, probably that's not right. If you're telling them it's $5 when they've gotten 15 entrees, which is beyond what the system can allow, they're thinking, I really should have investigated which food truck to go to because I'm going to have serious gastrointestinal repercussions here as a result. So the math is here as part of a valuable fence post that the user is going to use to ensure that they have successfully undertaken in interaction with you at your food truck. So those are the 90 points breakdown: good user design, good selection, good repetition, and good math. If you have questions, reach out to me, and do remember, start this sooner rather than later, because the snowball effect is in full swing here. Things are getting larger as we get closer to the end of the semester.